Welcome to the deep dive. Ever wondered how your body just, knows to speed up your heart when you're nervous? Or slow it down when you relax, all without you thinking about it? Mm-hmm. That's the autonomic nervous system, your body's internal autopilot. And today, we're diving deep.
Exactly. Yeah, think of it like two main teams working backstage. You've got the sympathetic nervous system, that's your fight or flight response, getting you ready for action.
Right.
And then there's the parasympathetic, the rest and digest team, which calms things down. Understanding this balance is really key.
Okay, so setting the scene. We have the central nervous system, right? Brain and spinal cord.
Yep. The PAM center.
And branching off that is the peripheral nervous system. Part of that controls voluntary movement. But our focus today is the autonomic side, the ANS handling all the automatic stuff.
That's the one. Now, these two teams within the ANS, sympathetic and parasympathetic, they're wired up differently. The sympathetic nerves, they start in the chest and lower back part of the spinal cord, thoracolumbar region.
Thoracolumbar. Got it.
And the initial nerve fibers, the preganglionic ones, they're short. They connect to relay stations, ganglia, that sit really close to the spinal cord. Okay. Then longer fibers, the postganglionic ones, run from those ganglia out to the actual organs.
Short hop first, then a long jump to the target.
Okay.
What about the parasympathetic side? Is it the opposite?
Pretty much, yeah. It originates way up in the brainstem and then down at the very bottom of the spinal cord, the craniosacral region.
Craniosacral. Different ends of the CNS.
Right. And here, the first nerve fibers, the preganglionic ones, are long. They stretch almost all the way to the target organs. The ganglia, those relay stations, are right near or even inside the organ walls. Then you just have very short postgangliotic fibers making the final connection.
Huh. So completely different layouts. How does that translate into what they actually do, the effects?
Well, often they do have opposite jobs. Sympathetic activation, it speeds up your heart rate, makes it beat stronger, it widens your pupils, opens up your airways.
Makes sense for needing energy and awareness quickly.
Exactly. And the parasympathetic, it generally does the reverse. Slows the heart, constricts the pupils, narrows the bronchioles. It's like hitting the brakes versus the accelerator.
A constant push-pull.
Yeah.
What about things like digestion?
Yeah. Sympathetic hits the brakes on digestion, tightens up sphincters. You don't need to digest lunch when you're running from a threat, right?
Logically, no.
Parasympathetic, though, that gets the gut moving, increases secretions, relaxes those sphincters, rest and digest. Even saliva changes. Sympathetic makes it thick. Parasympathetic makes it thin and watery.
That's fascinating. But you mentioned it's not always opposite. Are there exceptions?
Yes, good point. Sweat glands, for example, are mostly controlled by the sympathetic system. Same for the muscles that control how wide or narrow your blood vessels are.
So only sympathetic input there.
Primarily, yes. Yeah. And conversely, the ciliary muscle in your eye, the one that helps you focus, that's mainly parasympathetic. The pancreas, too.
Okay, interesting nuances. Let's switch gears slightly to the messenger molecule itself. Acetylcholine, ACH. You mentioned it's key.
Oh, absolutely vital. AC is the neurotransmitter used by all parasympathetic postganglionic neurons, the final messengers, but it's also used at the sympathetic ganglia, those relay stations we talked about.
So it plays a role in both systems.
In a way, yes. And crucially, it's the neurotransmitter at the neuromuscular junction, where nerves tell skeletal muscles to contract. Plus, it works within the brain, too. Very versatile.
Wow. Okay. So how does it work? How is it made and gotten rid of?
It's made right there at the nerve ending from components called choline and acetyl-CoA using an enzyme. When the nerve fires, AC gets released, crosses the tiny gap, and binds to receptors on the target cell.
And that triggers a response.
That triggers the response. But the signal needs to be turned off quickly for precise control. So enzymes called acetylcholinesterases rapidly break down the AC in the gap.
Super fast breakdown.
Okay.
And the receptors it binds to, you mentioned two main types.
Correct. Muscarinic and nicotinic receptors, named after things that originally helped identify them. Muscarine from mushrooms and nicotine from tobacco.
Right.
Muscarinic receptors, M1 to M5, are a bit slower. They're linked to internal cell machinery, G proteins. M1 affects things like stomach acid, M2 slows the heart, M3 acts on smooth muscle like in the gut or bladder and glands.
Slower, more complex responses maybe. And nicotinic.
Nicotinic receptors are fast. They're essentially ion channels. When ACE binds, the channel opens, ions rush in, bang, quick response. We find these, type NX, at the ganglia in both systems and the adrenal gland.
And the other type?
Type NI, absolutely critical, found at the neuromuscular junction. That's the receptor that triggers skeletal muscle contraction when ACE binds.
Okay, so understanding AC and these receptors must be huge for medicine.
Totally. Many drugs work by targeting this system. Pilocarpine, for example, mimics AC at muscarinic receptors. It's an agonist used for glaucoma.
And atropine, I've heard of that.
Right, atropine does the opposite. It blocks muscarinic receptors and antagonist, used for slow heart rates or, importantly, in organophosphate poisoning.
Like pesticides, because they mess with the AC breakdown.
Exactly. Organophosphates inhibit the acetylcholinesterase enzyme. Allergy builds up, overstimulates everything. Atropine blocks the muscarinic receptors, shielding them from the excess acety.
Got it. What about nicotine itself?
Nicotine stimulates the nicotinic receptors, hence its effects on blood pressure, heart rate, activating those NEX receptors in the ganglia.
And diseases, myasthenia gravis?
Yeah, in myasthenia gravis, the body attacks its own NI receptors at the neuromuscular junction. Fewer receptors mean the signal from nerve to muscle is weak.
Leading to muscle weakness.
Precisely. So we use drugs like neostigmine, which inhibit the acetylcholinesterase enzyme. This lets SE hang around longer in the gap, increasing the chance it hits one of the remaining NI receptors.
Boosting the signal to compensate? Makes sense. So those NI receptors are just fundamental for movement.
Absolutely. And you can have too much of a good thing. A cholinergic crisis, too much ACE stimulation can paradoxically cause paralysis because the receptors become overwhelmed.
We also target the sympathetic side directly, don't we?
Oh, yes. Like albuterol for asthma. It mimics adrenaline at specific receptors, beta 2, on the airways, causing them to relax and open up. That's a sympathomimetic.
And the other way, mimicking parasympathetic.
Yep. Bethanical, for instance. It stimulates M3 muscarinic receptors to help increase bladder contraction if someone has trouble emptying it. That's a parasympathomimetic.
And imbalances can cause conditions too.
Definitely. Horner syndrome involves damage to sympathetic nerves, often affecting one side of the face. Diabetic neuropathy can damage autonomic nerves, causing all sorts of issues.
So it really boils down to this intricate balance, the sympathetic versus parasympathetic tug of war, orchestrated largely by acetylcholine and its two receptor families.
That's a great summary. The constant push and pull, mediated by acarinic, muscarinic, and nicotinic receptors, is just fundamental.
And when that balance gets disrupted, either by disease or drugs, the effects are really significant.
Absolutely. It's this silent, crucial system constantly working inside you. Maybe next time you feel your heart race or your mouth water, you can, picture those signals firing, ACH being released and quickly broken down, keeping everything in check is quite amazing.